This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1826, The Return to New York Comic Con. Hey there, guys. This is Ian, and welcome one and all to the show. I am actually recording this first piece here 2 days before the beginning of New York Comic Con. And I'm feeling a lot of emotions. I have not missed a New York Comic Con since it started in 2006. And I stand here in 2021 now, with the 15th, if I'm counting correctly, New York Comic Con, technically the 14th, but the 15th year of New York Comic Con, as last year, obviously, there was not an official New York Comic Con, although there was a virtual one. And I have not been to a convention since PAX East 2019 in February. This is the longest I've gone without attending a convention of any sort since I was in college. I've been going to conventions since, I think, my sophomore year of college. That was Anime Boston was the first one that I headed to. And then from there, started with the comic conventions and all that. And I can tell you that I miss it. I'm a little worried, obviously, just with the state of the world and everything going the way it is. But I am also really looking forward to stepping back into the Javits Center for the first time since 2019. And I don't exactly know what I'm going to get when I walk in. I'm attending with a professional badge, just to throw that out there. Was able to sign up for one, and that's a 4-day badge, so I will be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I hope to get some conversation with friends of the Comic Geek Speak community, whether it be those tabling or whether it be people that I happen to run into while at the con. But I also am hoping to get, maybe a couple voices that I haven't talked to before, one way or the other, on the show while I'm there. No promises, because obviously I'm standing here 2 days before the con, and I don't exactly know how that's going to turn out. But what I do know is I am 37 years old now. 15 years ago when the con started, I was in my 20s. I was just getting done with college. And that was one of the first real geek mecca experiences that I had. Anybody who was at that first New York Comic Con knows how hard it was to even get into the con. That was the one that they had to call the fire marshals for. It only took place on the bottom level of the con, which is now usually where the artist alley and also the panels for the convention occur. But they had everything in that small little space. I remember sitting there with my mini disc recorder that I'd taken out for the weekend. I rented it from my college, sitting there doing interviews for my then podcast that I was running, which was just called Geek Speak. I know, I was so creative. And I'm sitting there in the lunch hall area of Javits, where all the food booths are, watching the line to get back into the convention, as at that point the fire marshals had stopped people from being able to go back in. And I remember seeing on that line, I've told this story a couple times on a couple different podcasts, but I remember seeing on that line Dan DiDio attempting to get back into the convention, and even he couldn't get back in. The editor-in-chief at the time of DC Comics was on the line with the plebes, just waiting to get back in. And eventually, we did get back in, and I had a really, really good time that first year. And I decided it's my home con, so I'm going to go the next year. And then the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year, the next year, the next year, so on and so forth. Times have changed. For a while there, Comic Geek Speak, as well as myself and a bunch of other podcasters, Comics News Insider, and at one point Around Comics, and a couple of other podcasters had what was known as Podcast Arena that was set up at the convention. And I got to actually table at a con for the first time in my life. And we did that for a few years until New York Comic Con outgrew the concept, essentially. And they were giving us way too good a deal to begin with. So I knew it wasn't going to last that long, but it lasted more years than even I thought it was going to. But it was an interesting experience, having that table to, go back to after going to a panel or walking the floor or what have you, and then getting to meet a bunch of listeners and fans, or just, friends that I hadn't really gotten to see before. I remember selling a bunch of my old comics there at the table in the last couple of years, where they had us in Javits North in the last couple of years of Podcast Arena, all the way in the back. Last year, they didn't even bother to give us a sign. That's how I knew it was over. But we were set up there, and now the Javits North building doesn't even exist. They tore that down completely, and with the assistance of the pandemic, they actually completely completed the expansion of the Javits ahead of schedule in the spot of where Javits North used to be. And again, Javits North is where the Artist Alley was for quite some time before they tore that down. Also had the best bathrooms in all of Javits. Ask anybody who's been to the con. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Special Edition NYC, same thing. That entire convention took place in Javits North. And I'm wondering exactly how they're going to incorporate this new space into the scope of the convention, whether that's actually going to happen this year, whether that's going to be a next year thing, as they are able to, re-expand the amount of people that attend the con, potentially, and whether or not they're, actually going to utilize this new space at all. I'm about to find out. But I've taken off from work, and I've taken off from work for the Monday as well. Just to recuperate, and I'll take the extra day to sleep in a little bit and enjoy the fact that I'm not walking around a convention and hurting my feet after hours and hours of doing so. But I'm looking to attend a few panels, and I'll have conversation on that, and looking to hopefully see a few people that I haven't seen in a couple of years. I know for a fact that there's a bunch of people tabling at this con that haven't been there in a few years, even before everything that happened to change the world. And if I get to see them, then it's going to be a great week. That much I know. But this is going to be a litmus test for me as well, because, as I said, I'm getting older, and I don't know how many more years I have in the tank of being able to attend 4 days of a convention. I already take my time. I'm never the one to get in exactly when the convention opens, and I think that will definitely be the case on Thursday. Friday, I might try to get there on time, but I think Thursday, as the con opens, you're not going to see me. I'll probably waltz in around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and then see how everything's doing. And Saturday is the day I'm dreading, just because Saturday's always the busiest day of the convention, and it doesn't matter whether they were limiting tickets or not. It's definitely going to be the hardest to walk around. But there's also some panels that I'm looking forward to on Saturday. Some diversity panels, and I think there's a Star Trek panel that I'm hoping to attend as well that day. I forget whether if that's the one for Prodigy or if that's the one for Discovery, but I I don't even know if I'm even really going to buy anything either when I get there, because my purchasing habits have changed significantly over the past couple of years, and now I only really buy trades occasionally, and I'm mostly in digital. But I fully expect myself to at least buy a few trades. I'm who am I kidding? I'll see if there's any shirts that catch my eye as well, and all that. And yeah, I mean, I'll be really soaking it in. I think that's the easiest way to put it. I wanted to turn on the recorder early just to sort of get my pre-impressions of everything, and to just, let you guys know my history with the convention. For those of you who don't, I mean, again, for years before Comic Geek Speak, there was Comic Timing, and because of that, I have a wealth of interviews that I've done on the floor, and people I've met, and people I've experienced, and this is kind of my first real official year, I feel like, of being the Comic Geek Speak man on the floor for this. And I want to let you guys in on the experience. That's the easiest way to put it. I'm going to turn off the recorder now. As I see, I've been talking for about 10 minutes, and again, I'm not even at the con yet. But I'm before I start rambling, just want to say yet again that I'm glad that I'm at a point where I'm not entirely freaking out about being around, that many people. I am a little bit, don't get me wrong, but New York Comic Con is my home. New York Comic Con is my experience, and I know tons of people who've given up on it over the years, saying that it's either too crowded, or that it's, not comic book enough for them, or, they're sick and tired of the hustle and bustle. And I'm kind of hoping that the smaller crowd this year may actually just make it that much more pleasurable for me and enticing, that perhaps in future years I'll feel that much more comfortable. But I've found my niche about walking the con. I know where to go and where to avoid. By now, I know the corridors of Javits that people don't tend to go down very much. I know which bathrooms tend to be empty enough to go down as well. But I just am really looking forward to this weekend, and I certainly hope that others are as well, and that it's a positive experience for all. And you'll be hearing me on this roaming recorder of mine. I may not be pants on the floor, but I am Levinstein on the floor, and I hope that you guys enjoy what I have to say. I will take this moment to do the usual spiel, as that is what I tend to do here, to thank all of you for helping out the show in one way or the other over the years, whether it be through donations at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak, whether it be through donations at comicgeekspeak.com/donate.php, the old PayPal way, or whether it just be through word of mouth. We thank you so much for that. And on with the show. And we'll see where I turn on this recorder next, because I have absolutely no idea, and neither do you until you continue listening. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday here, and I am on the train on my way to day 2 of New York Comic Con. I did record a little bit on Thursday, but that's now going to be a separate episode, as we were originally going to have Comfort Love and Adam Withers and myself and my buddy Chris on for a segment here for this, but we went 75 minutes, so that's now going to be its own episode. It went way longer than expected. We went there after dinner last night, went back to the Crown Plaza where they were staying, and after we had some delicious Thai food, and rambled on for way longer than I was planning on and doing so, but that always winds up happening when I catch up with old friends, so that's, again, going to be its own episode now. So just to catch you up a little bit on Thursday, got there about 3 o'clock. Wasn't really expecting to get there too early. As I've said before, I'm not much of an early bird when it comes to conventions. And that is definitely still the case, as it's now 1:30 in the afternoon and I'm on the train. I'll probably be arriving at Javits around 2:30. I am scheduled to have an interview later today, which you'll be hearing later on in this episode, and hopefully that one will not go 75 minutes, but I doubt it will, as we're kind of on a schedule. But I did wind up attending one panel while I was at the con, and this was Pitch Perfect, how to successfully pitch your story to a publisher. That was at 4:15 in the new room at the Jacob Javits Center, as they just expanded. It used to just be a small one-floor space, and they tore that down and built an entire extension to the convention center, which is now 5 floors deep. And this was taking place on the 4th floor in room 406.3, which is essentially an entire ballroom that they split into 3 separate panel rooms. And yeah, as I said, it was Pitch Perfect, how to successfully pitch your story to a publisher. On that panel was Andy Schmidt, Bon Almango, Jamal Igle, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and Stephanie Phillips. And they discussed the process of how to get your story to a publisher. And different ways of doing so, whether it be an in-person pitch or whether it be a written pitch, pitch with just writing, pitch with writing and art, and most importantly, include your damn contact information, because, as was said multiple times on the panel, that you wouldn't believe how many times they've gotten pitches where they've actually enjoyed, where they weren't able to contact the individual because they didn't put their contact information on the sheet. Don't just put it on the envelope, people. Put it on the sheet when you're submitting. It's plain and simple. But that was a really fun conversation, and then I got to catch up a little bit with Jamal afterwards, which was nice. And I walked the whole floor. Before that, the exhibit hall is very different this year, as expected. There's a lot more open space, and there's clearly one part of the hall in the second hall where you can tell that they had planned on having a booth in that location, and it is completely empty. This was not planned, you can tell by the layout. But not sure who canceled last minute, but some extra walking room, to say the least. A bunch of different exhibitors set up. Funimation has a very large booth, and also Crunchyroll and Comixology and a whole bunch of others, set up in different areas of the floor. The second half is devoted mostly to buying, as is usually the case. There's some good t-shirt dealers set up as well. We had a couple of food vendors scattered about, and one set up as an exhibitor. I think I mentioned this on the Comfort Love and Adam Withers episode also, but I'll mention it here as well. Kung Fu Tea set up with a booth, and that was one of the larger lines that I saw. People waiting to get free samples for their Kung Fu Tea. Go figure. Also, Chucky set up with a food truck that wasn't really a food truck. It was more of a promotional area for the upcoming sci-fi series. Sort of interested in that. I actually like the reboot more than I like the original Chucky movies, so I'm not sure how excited I am about the original continuity setting for this new sci-fi series, but I might check it out. And as expected, not a lot of exhibitors were comic book publishers. Aftershock has a huge space, and I'll be heading there later today to buy a few comics, and I'll let you know what I do pick up. But yeah, it's mostly dealers, not a lot of straight up publishers this time around. There's some smaller publishers that I haven't heard of before that I'll be taking a look at their stuff, and if it's worth an interview, then I'll definitely try to conduct one. But yeah, it certainly is nice to be back, but it is a very, very different experience than previous years. I'll be walking the floor more with some friends, and I might even get them on mic as well, just to get their perspective on what their experience was like today. But just looking forward to another day of a couple panels and getting to run into some people. Yesterday, I did manage to run into some friends of the Comic Geek Speak community. Ran into Ryan Spano on the floor. Hadn't seen him in at least 2 or 3 years, so it was wonderful to run into him. Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider. I got to talk to him for a little bit as he was roaming the floor, and had stopped by Comfort and Adam's booth just when I happened to be over there, so I got to say a couple quick words to him, and that was great. Buzz, good old cousin Buzz, is set up on the floor this year, and had a nice long conversation with him and always great to catch up with him. For a while there, we were living not too far apart from each other, so I'd randomly run into him on my way to the train, which was super funny. And other than that, a couple of other, random, artist encounters and what have you. And you may hear a few of them on this very podcast as we get further along. But, yeah, just wanted to fill you in on what Thursday was like. Overall, mostly empty, but that's to be expected for day one, as day one rarely has that large of a crowd to begin with. So it didn't really surprise me too much. However, we'll see how the rest of this goes, more than anything else. Today, panel-wise, just taking a look at some of the panels that I may be attending, and you'll find out at the end of the day whether or not I am actually going to wind up at them, as, again, it's already the afternoon here. But I don't really have a lot scheduled, but I may very well try to hit up the MTV 40th anniversary panel at 5 o'clock tonight. And they're doing a virtual screening for the show Evil, and I absolutely love Evil. That I may wind up trying to catch, but they're at the Empire stage, and I don't know if I'll be able to even get into this. There's a Ghostbusters Afterlife panel at 6:30 that, if there's room for me to get into it, I may very well give that a shot. But otherwise, there's a Joe Kubert School Presents Drawing for Kids panel at 4 o'clock, but that's more for, I think, a crowd other than myself. Social Media Optimism for Comic Book Creators is at 3:45. That also may be a possible one. I'm not starring that now as I look at my list here. But I think today is mostly just going to be a walking day more than anything else. Tomorrow there's a bunch more on the schedule that really catches my eye. But that's something else that I wanted to bring up, is that the panel slate this year, due to a lack of comic book publishers, is very different than it has been in previous years. I do see a few more panels that would be considered fan panels, even if they're run by professionals, which is a step in the right direction. I actually appreciate that. However, fewer panels, definitely, than in previous years. And again, a lot of them are taking place in that second hall, which is a trek, to say the least, if you're going from, say, like side one of the exhibitor hall all the way down to the Javits extension. But I'll be getting my 10,000 steps today, to say the least. All right, before I ramble on too much longer, I will go ahead and end it here, and I'll pick it up from the con itself the next time I turn on this recorder. Talk to you guys in a bit. And we're on. Isn't it so nice to reconnect in person with old friends?
Absolutely.
Jamal Igle in person, ladies and gentlemen. Jamal Igle in person!
It's day 2.
Yeah, it is.
Day 2.
Doesn't it feel like day 5?
A little bit. I was just saying to somebody, another friend of mine, that I don't think I've talked this much consistently in quite some time, except for the last week.
Yeah, except for when you podcast for 3 hours with me.
That's true.
Like that's basically when that happens.
Pretty much.
For me as well. Like, and mind you, I work at a talking job, and yet I don't talk nearly as much as I've been talking so far this weekend. So go figure. What's it been like, man? I mean, we're like almost near the end of day 2 at this point.
It's been good. It's been very good. It's I think in retrospect, in hindsight, compared to past New York Comic Cons that we've experienced, where either we were in a room that was way too small to accommodate everything that they were trying to squeeze in.
06, what's up?
Or there were just so many people that it was
2019, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. It was just hard to get around. Yeah. So I think in that regard, it's not sparse. It's busy. It's very, very busy. But the energy is different also.
Yes, that I've noticed, especially up there.
Yes.
Because, I mean, the exhibit hall, very, very different experience this time around than previous years.
It's a little odd to be able to walk around and not bump into anybody on the show floor. It really is.
It is, and yet simultaneously, I have run into more people that I know at this con in the last 2 days that I did in the last 5 cons.
It's old home week.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. I was walking the hall. I was walking the wall. The like this right around here. Like it was like row F, and randomly Spano is there. Like out of nowhere, Ryan Spano. I haven't seen him in like 3 years, 4 years. Last time I ran into him was at a WWE event,
right.
And he's just there, and I'm like, "You're here." It's great like that.
Well, the thing for me also is the little game we're playing.
Yes.
Which is, can you recognize me with my mask on?
Dude, oh my God. I ran into somebody who I hadn't seen in like 10 or 11 years, somebody from my old anime, like back in college, my old anime club. I'm giving him directions on how to get the Javits North until eventually, Ian? and like it clicks, Damien? Like, what? We're talking for 5 minutes until we finally realize, like, oh yeah, we know each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, there were a couple of times where you felt like you were like gunslingers.
Yeah.
Like you're walking up to somebody, and you're just kind of like, huh? And then you reach, you see the hand slowly reach up towards the mask, and you're going to see who tugs it down first. And then you're just like, on 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. Yeah.
We're all in an Eastward movie, like circa 76 or something like that.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, as someone who makes a significant amount of their time devoted to conventions on the regular, where do you see it going from here? I mean, obviously, this is probably the biggest one you've been to in a while.
It certainly, this is the first one that I've been to. The last convention of any kind that I was at was Algeria 2 years ago.
Which is funny because I was thinking to myself, you weren't here in 2019. Yeah. You were out of country.
Yeah. So I was at a comic salon in Algiers, being all fancy.
You got out of country right at the right time when you think about it, like right before shit went down.
I know. But it's still, you know what? This is good. This is like people. There's a release valve to this.
Yeah.
People needed this after 2 years of being locked up in their houses, and slowly getting back into the groove and things. Like you and I were both at Arthur Ashe Stadium for AEW Grand Slam.
Yes, we were.
Separate sections because we didn't know who was where.
Sting!
I know,
It's Sting! He's signing books upstairs. Shivani.
Oh, Shivani. I thought you said
No, not. But although my buddy David, who you've met a couple times, got a picture taken with Waller and JR.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
My mom came to see me.
Amazing.
And we were walking around the show floor, and I saw MJF in the distance, and I really want to go over there. But my mom's over here looking at, really expensive statues.
You mean your mom's not an MJF fan?
My mom is clearly not an MJF.
All right, fair enough.
I don't know if I'm an MJF fan, to be honest. I respect his work rate, and I respect the heel hustle.
Fair enough.
But he's such a good heel that he does actually piss me off sometimes, even though I know it's a work.
Oh yeah, yep. Speaking of which, heels on Stars right now. Watch it. It's Friday Night Lights with wrestling. It's so good. It really is. I
haven't. You know what? I started watching the first episode, and then like the scene with Ace making fun of the girl at the store.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, no, I can't.
I feel it.
This is you can. And then like the wrestling fan in me is like, you're letting this son of a bitch be the baby face, and you're healing up to this asshole?
Spoilers, it doesn't last. Shit goes down. That's all I have to say about that. Oh, man. Yeah. But, I mean, it's great to be back in some ways, and at others it's kind of like I'm watching myself be at the con. Like, I'm sort of like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I think there's still, there's always going to be, as long as things are the way they are with, like, the variants and everything, there's always going to be a certain amount of hesitation mixed with wanting to be careful and cautious.
Right.
But, we can't live our entire lives
exactly
in fear
Right.
So please, go get vaccinated.
Yes.
If you are listening, please, for the love of God, get vaccinated.
And then you could come back to cons.
Exactly.
And talk to Jamal like I am right now. Exactly. Speaking of which, I mean, you ran a panel yesterday on pitching.
Yes.
And I'm curious, at a con like this, and you talked a little bit about it on the panel, but at a con like this where there really aren't a lot of publishers on the floor,
right.
How does that change the pitching process for people?
Well, because there aren't, but even like before all of this, writers have the hardest time pitching themselves,
of course,
to publishers.
Right.
That's where the connection angle usually ends.
Yeah.
But this is a good con, like Artist Alley is a good place to make connections with other creators,
sure.
to see if something could spark from it, to hook up with somebody so you can develop that pitch, and then you guys can look at the submissions guidelines for other shows, or go to another show, hopefully where a publisher or two will show up. I mean, there's a couple of smaller publishers, Aftershock, Source Point Press, they're here.
I know Zetascope is here.
Zetascope is here. So there are some opportunities, I think. But even to get the practice to pitch.
Right.
To do the verbal pitch, to introduce your people, to get used to, because, we're creators. We're not usually the most verbose people in the world and the most outgoing.
What are you talking about? What?
This is a facade.
It's a pretty damn good facade, man. It's a pretty damn good facade.
It's practice after 30 years.
You're damn right.
But again, you get you're warming up. You want that practice. You want also the practice of actually being able to pitch stories.
Right.
So start small. I mean, that's the advice that I usually give to creators anyway.
Start small,
It's don't. If your work isn't already, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, Chaos, is Chaos still around?
I think so.
I think so.
I'll check that later. I'll check on the internet. Yeah.
But if you're not at that point yet, go for a smaller company, who's willing to take a shot on new creators. Yeah. There are a few. There's, you've got your vault, you've got your alternatives. You've got.
Read your contract thoroughly, though. Enough said.
That's
I know exactly.
That's a completely different discussion.
Exactly. We'll get into that another time.
Yes, absolutely. Still waiting for the dust to clear on it.
You're damn right. It's going to be a while.
Yeah. So, but again, that's the thing is you want to do that build.
Yes. Absolutely.
You want to do that build. You want to get your sea legs out from under you. And at the very least, you're introducing yourself to people who might be able to introduce you to other people.
Certainly.
You make those connections.
It's all about connections more than anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of pitches, though,
since
the last time we spoke, there was an announcement with your name attached to it with some guy I've never heard of called Scott Snyder.
Who?
Only one of the hottest writers in comics?
Yeah, I know. Scary, huh?
Yeah, right? So, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Comixology Unlimited has themselves a new book coming.
Yes, it's coming out next spring. It's called Dudley Datson and the Forever Machine. It's not my first YA project, but it's my first YA fantasy project. And I've been wanting to work with Scott since the first issue of American Vampire.
Oh my God.
So, and we came close a couple of times, and we stayed friendly over the years.
Yeah.
But when he came to me and pitched me Dudley, I was just like, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I've been wanting to do this forever.
Yep.
So it's about a teenage boy, gifted and talented, but feeling a little lost. And he inherits the Forever Machine, which is capable of traversing space and time, but he has to protect it. And he also inherits a talking robotic dog named Daedalus, who has the brain of Daedalus.
Oh my God! This is such a Kirby inspired creation. It's amazing.
Bonkers. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for people to see it.
And it's such a Jamal. I'm sorry. When I heard the concept and I saw the name, I'm like, all right, this all makes sense. This all works for me right here.
Oh no, it feeds into I mean, this is going to have, like, gorgons and dinosaurs and robots and homunculi and golems and the Minotaur and, you know, it's just... there's a phrase that I learned recently from a friend of mine who works in Hollywood, and when they're in the writer's room, and they just go, "Can we all have cake?" You know, where you just throw in everything that you could possibly imagine and see if it all comes together. So that is this project.
Have your cake and create it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Like, I can honestly, like, I've been very blessed over the years.
Yes.
I've had a really good career.
Yes, you have.
But I've got to say, honestly, that the last decade or so, from Molly to Black to The Wrong Earth, now with Dudley Datson, like, it's just been... It's been wonderful. Yeah. Like, it really has been just a giant, like, I never imagined myself being the creator-owned guy, and suddenly I'm the creator-owned guy.
Yes, and honestly, it works so well for the stories you're looking to tell, whether it be through art or whether it be through writing and art and creativity. You know, you've had that in you, and now you finally get the damn outlet for it, and that's what's so delightful. And
to a platform like Comixology, teaming up with Dark Horse on the print end, marrying the digital, trying to find ways to even marry it a little bit more within the context of the story and how the books are published as well. Like, marrying the digital and the print elements, which is something that's super important to both Scott and myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, I cannot frickin' wait. And we'll be talking about this more, most definitely.
Absolutely.
But let everybody else know what's currently available. I know White's available, Wrong Earth, you got everything.
White number 4 will be out soon.
Okay.
I think like within like the next month or so.
I remember it being solicited in previews. So,
1, 2, and 3 are in third printing.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Or I think 3 is in second printing. I just got copies of second print of 3. 1 is in the third printing. I think 2 is going into a third printing.
That's called Demand.
The trade paperback for The Wrong Earth Night and Day just shipped.
Nice.
So that's available in stores.
Awesome.
And then I'm working on the Mysterious Microface for NPR Planet Money right now.
Oh my God!
So that'll be out, I think, sometime towards the end of the year.
Freaking awesome!
Or early next year. So
you're all over the place, my friend.
I'm trying,
and that's the way I like to see it. So awesome to see you in person, buddy.
Brother, it's been way
too fucking long. I agree 100%.
Yesterday was the highlight of my day. It really was.
100% agree. Give me the website and the Twitter.
It's JamalIgle.com. It's very easy. You can find me on Twitter or find me on Instagram. Yeah. Don't bother Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but I rarely look at it anymore. Yeah. You wanna see me make fun of politicians and crack bad jokes? Follow me on Twitter at Jamal Igle.
Yes, and make the magic happen.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Have a great rest of the con. I'm sure I'll see you again, but you'll be off mic until then. So,
bye, everybody.
Bye, people, and I'll be back on mic shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the floor here. It is still Friday at New York Comic Con, and continuing Old Home Week a little bit here. Friend of Comic Timing, and now a friend of Comic Geek Speak, because that's the way this rolls, Mr. Fabian Lelay. Fabian, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. It's a wonderful day. I'm just chilling.
What's it like to be back at a con?
I love it. I love it, especially now. I think I've been telling a lot of people that's been passing by, like, you know, this whole light situation where like there's a lot more space. Sure, the traffic's not as like robust as like what we all are used to, but like there's a lot of breathing room. Like a lot of my like disabled friends are definitely having a great time.
You can actually get a wheelchair down these aisles.
I remember like 2 years ago, 2019, you can barely get anything through it. You know, like you can be walking on your 2 feet and not get around at all.
Well, one of the things that I pointed out to multiple people, now that we have the extension, They took what used to be the panel rooms over here and basically stopped using the space for that and doubled the size of the artist alley.
Yeah.
Something that I feel should have happened years ago.
Yeah. And also, like, I believe, like if my memory serves me correct, I think they took out like maybe like a few, like maybe 3 or 4 like rows, but it doesn't seem empty.
It doesn't.
You know?
No.
I think it's very, very well spaced out, and I think it's very accommodating, both with like the pandemic still happening and like with people in general trying to just be safe. I think it's really good.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, especially like today compared to yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, when I walked in yesterday, it looked like a light con. You know, it looked like, you know, it was a typical like third level con in size. Today, pretty damn close to what normal would be. I mean, obviously fewer people because they've limited that, but there's a lot of people here today.
Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, and not to sound like a shill for Repop, but like they've been doing a really good job of opening up, operating the way that they are with like the test results. They've been doing a pretty good job for what it is and how they started operating. Obviously, there's going to be like some setbacks, but like for what it is, it's working pretty well.
My only setback was that the first time I got this, I didn't realize that if you tighten it, you can't untighten it.
Yes.
So today I had to get a new one because it was basically attached to me.
Yeah.
I had to frickin' scissor it off last night in order to actually get my wrist to breathe.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I knew how these things worked.
Yeah.
I had like an old experience with like these types of like ties, and so I knew what I was signing up for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're doing a really good job with this. I'm really glad how everything's being handled. I'm really happy with how respectful everybody is to each other. I think moving forward, if they keep doing this, I think con experiences will be a lot better.
Yes.
Rather than, you know, like, sure, it's not a lot of people, it's not a lot of content as what we're used to, but definitely it gives us more, surprising enough, it feels more intimate this way.
That's exactly where I was going with it, and frankly, it feels more like an artist and creator con this year than it ever has.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
I think moving forward, they should try to keep the same numbers. If maybe they might add some tickets like on different days. You know, yeah, sure, but like this is definitely something that is cherished by a lot of creators that I've spoken to, because they're able to like connect with their fans a lot better by being able to just talk.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Like if you and I were doing this right now, we would be like forehead to forehead trying to speak into this mic right now just to be heard. And now it's the comfort is definitely something that is appreciated right now.
That's another benefit of this particular portable microphone as well, is that it picks up sound pretty well. So, even back in the day, if I had it at this length, I'd be able to still hear what everybody was saying.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're talking about with the up close and personable.
Exactly.
100%. So what the people know out there, what you've been up to, what you got going right now, and what comics they should be looking forward to.
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of jumping in the deep end recently, you know, trying to get into comics full time.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is recently I've done a showcase cover for Mad Cave.
Yes.
Mad Cave has been really generous to me and really kind to be giving me a lot of projects lately.
Nice.
I did a showcase cover for their one of their titles, one of my friends' titles, Vexstar, which is a space fantasy opera.
Nice.
That acts pretty much like if Indiana Jones, well, if Han Solo was Indiana Jones.
Okay.
You know, it's a gambler pushing their luck in a high science fiction fantasy world.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
And like the cover that I did is a limit. I believe I was talking to the creator earlier that it was like I believe about like 100 copies.
Okay.
So if you can find it and it's still available, you should definitely get your hands on one. I'm also doing a series of homage covers for their upcoming title, Speed Republic, which will feature a bunch of homages to a bunch of racing and driving movies.
Yeah, and I saw some of them here in your portfolio. They look pretty badass.
The two that I've done so far are based off of Drive and Bullet, respectively. Next month, or whenever you're listening to this, November 17th is the release of Porcelain No. 4, which I did a variant cover for. It's Maria Lovett's, one of their older titles from back in 2012, but first time translated into English. So if you want to grab a copy of that, November 17th is when that's out. And that's about what I can talk about publicly right now. I'm definitely going to be on an OGN soon. Check out my socials for announcements soon enough. And yeah, right now that's what I'm doing. I'm also
and what you've done. Obviously, I mean, since the last time we spoke, there's now a full collection out for it. So
yes, since we last spoke, my book We Are the Danger is now available in trade format. Also, my delayed title Jade Street Protective Service is also available in trade format. In all stores. If not, you can visit Black Mask Studios on their website, blackmaskstudios.com, and you can purchase a copy over there. And if you're a fan of digital comics, it's available also at Comixology for a digital copy.
Nice. Give the folks a little bit of a pitch on both of those, just in case they haven't heard about them.
Well, Jade Street Protection Services is about a bunch of teenage magical girls running away from magical school and making sure that they are in charge of their own futures. And we have We Are the Danger, which is a coming-of-age story of an immigrant girl pursuing their love for music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the most striking covers for a collection I've seen in quite some time. Like you got that nailed, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It's one of the first covers I confidently jumped into because I'm more of an interior person, and it's probably one of the most the covers I'm most proud of that I've done through my career. I've been loving what I've been doing lately. I think I've improved a lot through the years, but that is definitely something that cover has been very fun to do.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what draws people to the book initially, especially here at conventions.
Yeah,
if they see it on your sign and then they see it in front of you, oh, this is intriguing. I need to learn more. Yeah,
it's definitely an eye catcher during the show.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that translated pretty well.
Pretty cool, man. Let people know where they can find your work online, socials, and all that jazz.
Well, I'm doing other things other than comics. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Twitch if you're a fan of D&D and TTRPGs.
Nice.
I'm a DM for a show under the banner of Going Critical. You can find us at Going Crit at RPG on Twitch.
Nice.
We are planning to do a lot more shows about a lot more different systems. Right now we're running 2 D&D 5e systems called Watchers of Windmore and Hellions of Windmore. If you're into a lot of mischief and trauma for player characters, you can just jump in and have fun with us. We're live every Monday and Friday.
You basically just described Dungeons and Dragons. So
pretty much. Yeah, we're trying to venture into other systems. Soon enough, we're going to be doing City of Mist.
Okay.
And that'll be fun.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Fabian, awesome to catch up with you and enjoy the rest of your con.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
All right, man. And we'll be back with whatever I turn this mic on next for. You find out before I will. It's back on. It's Sunday, and we're here at New York Comic Con with Eli. I don't want to mispronounce your last name.
Neugeboren.
I knew I was going to. That's why I let you do it. Eli, sir, it's been a while, but how's it been going for you here at New York Comic Con?
It's been great. It feels like there's a lot more space and a lot less people, and yet it feels like it's just as busy. I've had 3 good days, and today, the 4th day, has also been really good, successful.
Great.
Lots of nice commissions and wonderful people, great cosplays.
That's honestly what I like to hear, because, I mean, what matters most is that the artists are actually getting their play, that they're still getting their commissions, that they're getting their tables paid for and what have you. So even if the actual amount of people has gone down, at least business has not.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? I think the people that are here are the dedicated ones that really want to be here, right. And they came ready to spend.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, trust me, my wallet knows. I mean, one of the things since the last time that we spoke that you got to work on was Weapon Echh.
Weapon Echh.
Which I love saying, and will say over and over again if I can, but let the listeners out there in CGS land know a little bit more about Weapon Echh, for those who have not heard.
All right, Weapon Echh is put out by 100% Comics, a small publisher out of California. Ben Granoff, who's an artist and I believe also a writer, illustrator, put it all together, and it's basically redoing a bunch of artists in the tradition of Shitty Watchmen, if I can say that. You can bleep me out.
You can definitely say that.
All right, in the tradition of Shitty Watchmen and Shitty Dark Knight, it's retelling Barry Windsor Smith's classic run in Marvel Presents of Weapon X. But I did a much more sort of traditional, tried to do my own homage to Barry Windsor Smith, who I think is one of the all-time greats. Somebody did it in a Bart Simpson, Simpson style. Yep. There's tons of different styles, tons of different artists, and it's a lot of fun. It's a great book.
Honestly, I'm glad you mentioned The Simpsons, because my mind immediately goes to Bart Kira.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of that, but that was an awesome collaboration project with everybody trying to recreate Akira in the Simpsons style. That was terrific.
Yeah, Bart Kira, I feel like that was one of the first ones that kind of launched this type of collaboration.
Yep.
And I think this one is it's different, but it's got a lot of great quality artists in it.
Excellent, fantastic. Let everybody else know some of the other stuff that you have here. I mean, obviously there's Long Shadows, there's the amazingly named Sharkary versus Tsunami Crab.
That's right. So Sharkary versus Tsunami Crab is I've got two chapters, and I'm working on the third right now. Basically, like small prestige format, if you remember when they called it that.
Yes.
And it's two young kids. They're based on my two boys who are now 8 and 10 years old. So Zachary turns into Sharkery, and his little brother turns into Irate the Pirate, and they fight the giant Tsunami Crab, who's a giant mutant crab who's pissed off all the time. I was also able to contribute. I sold out of my copies, which is great, but I contributed to the Kovid Chronicles.
Oh, yeah. I saw that here on the table earlier this weekend.
Yeah. So that's another anthology put together by Penn State University Press. Has a brand new graphic novel imprint called Graphic Mundi.
Okay.
So it's the first thing from them, and it's a lot of first-person stories of the lockdown, of dealing with the virus. My own contribution was inspired by Bill Sienkiewicz's Dictator trading card set from the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a throwback. But,
nice.
So I did World Leader Response baseball trading cards, basically, with their stats and, good, bad, and ugly. And I did 6 different world leaders and a special one for the MVP, the most valuable physician, Dr. Fauci. Brooklyn's own.
That is amazing. I absolutely love it. Kovid Chronicles, is that available online for purchase as well?
That's available at all fine booksellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and hopefully your local shop.
Excellent. What about some of the other stuff here? Where can they find that?
So let's see. The corpus is put together by Nadia Shamas, who's worked for Marvel. Yep. That, I believe, you can get on her website, probably at some bookshops.
Yep.
Weapon Echh, I think you can order from 100%. And
I believe that is the case.
Yeah. And the rest you can order from me at EliNeugeboren.com.
Terrific. You on Twitter as well? Or?
Yes, I'm Enoogs, Enoogs, on Twitter, Instagram, and anywhere else you might find me.
All right, fantastic. Well, I know it's Sunday and you must conserve your voice as well. But thank you so much for at least giving me a few minutes of your time here, and I'm glad to see it was a successful con more than anything else.
Thanks, Ian.
All right, definitely. All right, and we'll be back in just another few moments here on CGS with some other people. All right, let's breathe a little bit. Let's breathe the air outside, even if there's a little bit of cigarette in the air. Like at least we're outdoors, And I'm here with someone who I got the pleasure of meeting at dinner earlier this week, Dani Colman. Dani, how are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
How'd the con go? I mean, you sold out, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, the show has been fantastic. I was a little worried before coming about what the attendance would be like, especially since there wasn't a show last year for obvious reasons.
Sure.
But it's just been a really great crowd. I think everyone is glad to be back here, glad to be interacting with other fans.
Yeah.
And super excited to check out independent books and independent art. So it's been wonderful.
And that's what the artist alley is all about, honestly, is the independence. And I think what's really great about this year is that they may have cut the tables by a little bit, but really not by much. But, like, you can walk.
Right, yeah, it's still a lot of people, but everything's really spread out, so there's space to move around. When people stop, it doesn't block other people's tables. And what I've noticed this year is that because there are a lot of the kind of big names who are still sitting out shows, there's a lot of fresh talent in Artist Alley. A lot of people who have not got in before. And it's diverse talent as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of women, a lot of creators of color. And again, the enthusiasm from the attendees is absolutely there. Like, you know, they're not seeing that whatever big name isn't here and staying away. They're spending money on new talent and buying books they haven't seen before. And it's just wonderful to see.
And that's something also, like, piggybacking off of the last person that I talked to, he mentioned that in order to go to this con, you had to be really devoted, and you had to decide that, like, this was something that you really, really wanted to do.
Right.
And it shows in the enthusiasm of everyone here, willing to purchase new things, willing to, you know, explore the medium, and that's definitely on display.
Right, absolutely, and especially, you know, with the vaccine mandate, with the mask mandate, you have people who are willing to take the precautions to be here. That shows a certain amount of dedication right on its own.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, not only are you British, but you're also Jewish.
I am.
And boy, oh boy, does your current project inhabit both of those. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're currently pitching here at the con and sold out of at the con?
Absolutely. So I have a book through Wonderbound, which is the young adult and middle grade imprint from Vault Comics. It's called The Unfinished Corner. It's a fantasy adventure inspired by Jewish mythology about a group of kids who get kidnapped by a rogue angel who wants them to finish the corner of the universe that God forgot.
Oh my God, yes. Now that just hits so many of my positive notes, like, all in one way.
What's been funny is, so, you know, the pitch is pretty refined at this point. I've probably given it, you know, at least 150 times over the course of the weekend.
Yep.
And people's eyebrows go up at the same spots every single time.
Especially,
it's
like,
wonderful.
corner of the universe that hadn't really been like found before.
Right, it's like it's a 3-beat pitch.
Yep.
It's, you know, Jewish mythology. Ooh. Rogue angel. Ooh. Corner of the universe that God forgot. Ooh. And at that point, they're usually getting the credit card out, which is very gratifying.
That is so cool. How long has this concept been, like, floating around in your head?
So I pitched it to Vault, I think, about 3 years ago. They were doing open pitches at San Diego Comic-Con. I already had a little bit of a relationship with Adrian and Damien.
Right.
And I wanted to pitch them something that they wouldn't be hearing from anyone else.
Sure.
I wanted to give them something truly unique.
Right.
At the same time, because of the political climate that we were in at the time, and are still in, to be honest, there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on.
Certainly, yeah.
It was the same summer of the Charlottesville March. And so I very much wanted to create something, one that just showed how proud I am of my heritage, of my culture, but also that could be a little bit of a beacon of hope. Something that's fun and adventurous and a bit of a counter-narrative to all of the pain and the hate that was out there at the time and is still out there now.
Absolutely. And it's a great thing to see, really. Like, I mean, like, any sort of positive note, any sort of beacon that people can point to, whether they know the culture or whether they don't, positivity is what we need right now. And the story like that just sounds freaking fun.
That was the idea. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be funny.
Yep.
You know, it definitely has its serious moments. These are the main characters are kids of bar and bat mitzvah age.
Right.
They're thinking very hard about what it means to be adults, what it means to be Jewish. But they're also friends. They give each other crap. They, you know, they try and figure out impossible situations. fun is absolutely what it's all about. And it's something that I've become increasingly aware of over the past couple of years, that people don't really want dour or dystopian narratives anymore. We are so excited for counter-programming, for things that give you joy. I think that's why there's been such a swell of nostalgia over the past few years, because we want to go back to those things that gave us uncomplicated joy.
It's super hilarious you mention that, because there's two things that I got to see as previews here. The latest episode of Why the Last Man, the opposite of what you just said, and the premiere of Star Trek Prodigy, which is definitely in that direction. When it comes to media, and I think that both comics and shows themselves. Yes, let's aim for the positivity right now. We're kind of already living it. We don't really need to live in it.
Why the Last Man is such a funny case study to me because it's been in development hell for so long.
Oh, exactly.
I love the books. I have devoured the entire series more times than I can count.
Yep.
And yet, for the TV series finally to be dropping in the middle of a pandemic, shortly after a literal political insurrection,
it's fun for the whole family.
Right, exactly. And I do, I wonder if it had gone into production even a few months later, would someone have said, let's take a step back?
Right.
Is this the right time for this?
That's a good point. And honestly, I mean, one of the things that was brought up at the panel, they basically said that because they were going to start production right before the pandemic hit, and then they had to delay a few months, because everything shut down.
Right.
And then they're like, all right, maybe we should reassess at least a little bit of what we're doing here, because now that we've actually lived through it a little bit, maybe there's some stuff that we shouldn't be doing and other stuff that we should. So I'm sure it affected it at that. I have a very important question for you.
Go for it.
Did you have to source actual young Jewish kids in any way, like your relatives or anything of the sort, to try to get the voice down for what you were looking for?
Not really, and it's because I grew up a Jewish kid.
Exactly.
So many of my friends from middle school, their voices, bits of their personality made it into this comic.
Been there, done that myself, yes.
It's such a distinctive voice. There's a chapter right at the beginning where you see the main character interacting with her family for a little bit, and they're talking about her upcoming bat mitzvah and just giving her crap. And her sister gets in on it, and her parents make this big song and dance about how they're going to give her away to a local boy in marriage, and they need to find a goat for the dowry. And it's exactly the kind of crap my parents pulled with me.
Oh, sure.
And that my siblings got in on.
Yep.
And what's funny is when I've given it to Jewish readers, they've said, okay, how do you know my parents?
See, that's awesome, and honestly, I just picked it up earlier. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. This is making me want to read it even further because, yes, I have Jewish parents, so there you go. But also, I remember I had a Yankee-themed bar mitzvah.
What?
Yes, because that's how much of a Yankees fan I was back then when I was 13. I think if I were to do it today, it might be a little bit different. just thinking about it, and not only that, but I remember literally doing rock, scissors, paper with a friend of mine who had the same birthday as me as to who would have their bar or bat mitzvah first. I think I won out, if I remember correctly, but I it's been a long time. It's hard to remember.
So at my bat mitzvah, I grew up playing the violin.
Nice.
And music has been a huge part of my upbringing and my family for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And so for my bat mitzvah, I put together my own klezmer band out of my friends from middle school. And it was not a Jewish-only klezmer band because I didn't know any Jewish double bass players.
Jewish, I feel like that's a Craigslist ad, waiting to exist.
Right? Where are you? Come on, take up the instrument.
Wanted.
So we like to joke at the time that we were the only klezmer band whose members had to take time off rehearsals for Ramadan.
Oh my God, yes.
But it was a ton of fun. And then my siblings 4 years later had kind of a musical theater themed bar and bat mitzvah.
Okay.
They're twins, so they had it at the same time.
Nice.
And so we all wrote songs that we would sing for them instead of speeches.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I did the bat mitzvah rag to the tune of the Vatican Rag by Tom Lehrer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I forget if I mentioned this to you. I'm taking a trip to London in February. We're specifically going to see Back to the Future, the musical.
Wonderful.
That is the reason to go. Like, that's a reason to visit London. Like, right there. Like, all right, it's on the West End. Like, all right, okay, let's make it happen.
Absolutely.
Is there a specific spot I should be hitting while I'm in London? We're staying by St. Paul's, so like we're like right there in the heart of the city.
Oh my goodness! I mean, London is a big city, and it's
a damn right it is. I've been there once before, so I did a bunch of the museums already.
Right, and it's a city that is just so. There is so much there. There is so much history.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'd say see if you can find some of the less touristy places, some of the kind of the old churches in the suburbs, the little towns that got swallowed up by the big city.
Okay.
There are some beautiful parks. And there's just, probably less now again because of the pandemic, but there's just a ton of independent theater and music and comedy. I used to go to lectures at the Royal Institute of Science.
Ooh.
They would have Friday night lectures, some amazing speakers. I saw Stephen Pinker talk for an hour about the history of, about the neuroscience of irregular verbs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which I promise you was way more fun than it sounds.
Honestly, just irregular verbs sounds fun for me. I mean, my mother's a speech therapist, so like exactly, yeah.
But no, they always have incredible guest speakers, and sometimes their Friday lectures are just fun. Like one of the ones I got to go to when I was a teenager was a balloon debate. Between, I think it was like Isaac Newton and Louis Pasteur and a couple of others. And at the end of each round of debate, the audience got to vote on who got thrown out of the balloon.
That is awesome.
It was great.
Man. Okay, yeah. So I'm happy to see that, just like here in New York, everything you want. Everything you want.
Everyone.
Exactly. And you're in San Francisco these days, so plenty of stuff to do there, too.
No shortage.
Yeah, exactly, to say the least. Let the folks out there know some of the other stuff that you've worked on in the past. I know you have at least a couple of other books of note.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find my short stories in the anthologies Femme Magnifique, and in the latest anthology from Iron Circus, You Died. I have a lovely little story in there with a former student of mine about a group of sentient robots trying to process the death of their creator.
Nice.
Not existential at all.
Of course not.
And then prior to that, my work was mostly kind of back matter essays, editorials. So you can find my essays on classical poetry in the back of Matt Fraction and Christian Ward's Odyssey.
Awesome.
And I also contributed essay work and short stories to the two image books, Blackjack Ketchum and Fair Lady, both written by Brian Shermer and drawn by Claudia Balboni.
Very cool. Were you a comic book fan growing up, or was it something you got later on in life?
I came to comics fairly late, so I read some graphic novels as a teenager. When I was in high school, a boy I had a crush on said I should read Watchmen and Mouse, which tells you...
That's a lot.
Tells you everything about the kind of boys I had crushes on.
That's pretty damn heavy for teenage reading right there.
Yeah, so that was my introduction to comic books right there.
So what's your introduction? Watchmen. Like, whoa. All right, back up.
Exactly. I think I read Mouse first, actually, which...
Oh.
So not only my introduction to comics, but my introduction to Jewish comics.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, great. The Holocaust book. Let's start off with the Holocaust book.
Right. Let's dive right in.
Exactly.
And then, it wasn't until I was a young adult that I came back to comics and got interested in some of the more mainstream work. And through friends that I met through classes and through coming to Comic-Con, got to know some of the fantastic independent comics that are coming out these days.
Very cool. And you mentioned students. Are you a teacher, or?
So for a while, I taught at the Academy of Art University. I taught writing for comics and graphic novels.
Well, let's get more people into it, shall we?
Hell yes. The industry is more welcoming, I think, than it ever has been.
Absolutely.
It's always been difficult to make money, but it's easier than it's ever been to get comics out there.
Yeah.
And the industry is crying out for fresh, diverse voices.
100%.
That's something that has been The industry has been trending that way for a number of years, but I think it's really reaching an inflection point.
Yep.
And some of the most incredible books coming out at the moment are from perspectives that we would not have heard from 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And I'm bringing it back to earlier, all you need to do is walk through the artist alley to see that as a perfect example.
Absolutely.
Yep. Give your socials out there for anybody looking to follow you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and of all things TikTok at Dani Writes Stuff, and my website is www.daniwritesstuff.com. Very easy to remember. I'm the same everywhere.
Excellent, and we'll find some other Italian restaurant where someone smuggled Italian cookies into the country for our next visit.
And someone else can make me laugh so hard I almost choked to death on a cannoli.
Take the gun. All right, well, thank you so much for getting on mic here, and lovely to meet you.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Excellent. We should have at least a couple more segments here at New York Comic-Con before we wrap up, and then I'm going to bed. All right, people. It is Sunday, and the con is officially over at this point. We are sound isolated underneath a set of escalators pretty nicely, and Kris is back with me here. Although, I guess for you listeners, she hasn't been here yet since we're splitting out the Comfort and Adam episode. So, hey, Kris.
Hi, people.
And also on mic for the first time in a while, in fact, I think for the first time ever, Mr. David Gold. David, how are you?
Hello, I'm well, thank you.
Well, good. Terrific. Both of you guys were here for the bulk of the con. Kris, you were here all 4 days.
Yeah, I had to come late on Thursday because I actually did not take Thursday and Friday off. Usually I do.
Yeah.
I actually don't anymore. Because I have a press badge, so I just come and it's work.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of work to do because, this episode won't be out, just yet. But, we're currently prepping a holiday gift guide.
What?
All the hottest tech toys.
And more.
And more, but I don't do and more.
Oh, okay. You just do the hottest tech toys.
Yes, but I have been here. I've been here all 4 days. I am tired. I have to work tomorrow. I feel great sadness. Not necessarily because the con is over. I'm a little relieved, to be honest. Yeah, I'm just tired. This has been a weird year.
Yeah, it really, really has. And, it's nice to get at least a little bit of normalcy back by, being at a convention, but at the same time, it's still not quite normal. David, how to work for you? Obviously it's a different con, but it's still the same con in the end.
Yeah, I think so. People are doing the new things that you got to do for safety. The mask compliance has been like 99%. I'm glad for that. Everything's a little more spaced out, but it feels to me a lot like the old con because the enthusiasm's the same.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah, and also, especially yesterday and today in particular, crowds have been pretty damn big either way. Yes, they're limiting the amount of people in, but it's still a lot of people. As we see everybody leaving the show floor right now, it's still droves.
Yeah, I live in New York, so it does not feel like a subway car stuffed of people anymore, which is fine. Yeah. Assuming that the convention and the people exhibiting make bank and don't have a loss after this, keep doing it this way.
Yes.
I did not feel like a sardine con goer.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That is definitely okay. And, one of the benefits of this year was, again, a larger artist alley space where things were able to be more, spread out and what have you. And the addition of Javits extension and stuff being on the 4th and 5th floor, which, we saw a couple of things in there, and it's a huge space.
Yeah, no, the new Javits North, I think it is still called that, is a godsend. Yes, I will always, pour 40 out for the old Javits North, but this one is multiple floors. The rooms are much bigger. There's a lot of natural light. The bathrooms are spacious.
Yes.
Speaking as a person who has to use female bathrooms, like the bathroom situation at New York Comic-Con and at the Javits in general has always been atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to have this new space. And every time there's a panel, it feels good because you're not going to be lining up in a cramped hallway. And the main hall, the new Empire stage, because you remember the Empire stage used to be the one that's closer to the food court.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And that room is so ridiculously tiny. Mm-hmm. This is much bigger. We didn't have a single problem getting into any panels, even if we didn't have we had reservations. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's definitely an improvement. It's not even just because they have less people here. But again, with the space is appreciated, and it's probably good we have more space in a year where you're supposed to be socially distanced.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And David, you went to your AEW thing was in the old stage, right? That was downstairs on the first
one. Yeah, that was in 1D4. It was the downstairs.
Yeah.
Now I guess the Empire stage in Javits North is the new biggest.
Right.
All this, I'm just for the record, I'm a person who comes from like an event background, event planning. So I'm just like I'm appreciating some of the little details. Like, it might be my imagination, but I think the panels are sort of staggered so that less of them start at the exact same time.
Right.
So that, like, if you got to have people lined up, you don't have everybody lined up at the same time. You have a lineup, and then they go away, and then another lineup and go away.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of little touches to have less people in one space at the same time.
The one thing they're going to have to fix for next year, though, is if they do use the same panel layout, there's a set of panel rooms in the actual artist alley area, like towards the back, and they had people lining up for signings directly next to where the lineup for that room was. That's where I went to see the Brian K. Vaughan panel, and it was super crowded over there. And we were tight. That's the one time I felt like a sardine, because they had a very small amount of space to line people up. And I guarantee you, nothing really, packed the room, but Brian K. Vaughan packed the room, because it was Brian K. Vaughan, and that's where we got the announcement that Saga was coming back.
Right. I mean, I'm not, I don't know anyone in Reed Pop. If they want to hire me, they can go ahead. But, in my imagination, in the con of the future, if, these measures go forward forever and ever, we all have the badges, and they all have, I assume, an RFID thing somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Let's leverage what we can to, get rid of lines more.
Oh, yeah.
If I reserve for something, then I really shouldn't have to tap my badge first and then go in line.
Right.
It should be okay, we're letting people in at this point. Did you reserve? Yes. Okay, tap your badge. Yeah. Go right in.
Sure.
The reserve line should be you didn't reserve the thing, or the backup lines.
Right.
You didn't, and now you're going to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
That's from when I used to do theater management. That's how it would be.
Sure.
If you already reserved, tap the badge, go in.
Yep.
Don't line up.
Definitely. How was the AEW panel, by the way?
It was pretty neat. Everyone came out. There was a bit of a reel ahead of talking about we started year 3 of AEW now, and people were cheering about that. Tony Shivani comes out first. People love Tony. Both of his ears are pierced. I used to keep thinking, when I see him on TV, I'm like, dang it, which of his ears is pierced? It's both.
Nice.
It's both.
Yeah.
And so he comes out, does a little thank you for being here. He introduces, as if they were coming out to the ring, he introduces Thunder Rosa, he introduces Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and finally Adam Cole, baby. Got the biggest pop.
Yeah.
And the questions were mostly softball things.
Of course.
Who's a person you'd ever want to tag team with? Everyone answered CM Punk. Who's a person you might have the most ring chemistry with? The surprising answer was Thunder Rosa. She wasn't sure if she should say it because her answer was Io Shirai, who's with WWE right now.
Okay.
But Io Shirai trained her when she was in Japan.
And this has been your wrestling moment, brought to you by that other fandom that a lot of people that are into comic books are all about. So but it sounds like it was a pretty. Was it full? Was it full?
I think it's, I would say, 3/4 of what that room could hold.
Okay, fair enough. And we all went to see earlier today the Star Trek Prodigy premiere panel.
I love the Prodigy. There's a rock. It's scary. Then it's not scary because it's a little girl, and they have a dog, but it's not a dog. It's like a blob.
And now the thoughts of adult Kris.
Star Trek Prodigy is the Star Wars Rebels of the Star Trek franchise. Did I actually say Star Trek Prodigy?
You did say Star Trek Prodigy. Yes.
I know. I'm distracted by the small child that I really want to interview now.
I know. Seriously. No, it was not surprising because I was fully expecting to like it, but it was really well done. The animation's crisp. I like the character designs a lot. The voice acting is on point.
I feel like, with a Star Trek program, when you first get your shot of the ship and the ship is flying, it should be just a little tear in the corner of your eye. And I had the moment. I was, there's a video, a fan video that someone made to Nicki Minaj's Starships. You've seen it.
Yes.
You know, you can link it in the post for this. But, you know, I was humming. I was just going, Starships, as like the ship is leaving the planet. I was just like, yes, my beautiful babies, flee, run right away in the Federation Starship.
Well, if Giacchino hadn't made a opening for it, I'm sure that probably would have been the song that they'd gone for.
I don't know. I mean, I think we're kind of done with Nicki Minaj after her cousin's friend's testicles.
Fair enough. And anyway, moving on. Oh, dear Lord. I didn't want to have to think about that again, quite frankly. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, what'd you think, David? Was it what you were expecting?
So Kris likes the Star Wars animation more than I do, so I didn't have that point of comparison. I'm thinking that it's great to have kids enter a thing, because if you want kids to like Star Trek, this is a great entry point because it's kids watching kids.
Right.
We know kids love watching kids do adventurous things.
Of course.
And yeah, just to back up what she said, the great thing about animating a starship flying is, like, if you want it flying through the most incredible nebula and asteroid cloud, and like, just do it. Like, it's animation now. You don't have to worry about how are we going to achieve this with our model. It's just shooting off through everything.
Of course.
But and starting off in a sense, I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that the characters don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah,
right.
No,
they didn't sign up for the ship, is what I'm saying. That's not a spoiler.
Anybody who's seen the trailer too, like that's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Right. So for a child who's watching the show, it's great to, like, because you are now experiencing it along with the main characters. You don't know any more than they do. Right. You want to find out things at the same rate that they will.
Sure. And this was also my favorite type of all ages animation, where they're just writing. They're not writing as if, like, hey kids, let's jump onto a starship. Okay, great. Oh, hey, here's the rock creature. Ooh, isn't he cute? You know, that sort of scenario. It's actually an incredibly well written and scripted show. It just happens to be, you know, something that's definitely going to be available for anyone of all ages to get into and enjoy.
Well, I mean, the thing about Star Trek Prodigy, which actually might put it in the higher echelons of Star Trek, is it hopefully will never have any of the embarrassing sexy scenes that plagued, you know, I mean, I won't go...
Decontamination chamber.
The decontamination changer, which I love the episode where, like, Hoshi is, like, rubbing down Porthos, the dog, which just made it all kinds of wrong. But, you know, I even think about things like the conversation... What?
The Naked Now.
The Naked Now, but the conversation between Crusher and Troy in Next Generation where they're exercising, and, like, Troy's like, oh my god, I got so late, it's so awesome. And Crusher says the whole, oh, the kind of sex that makes your toes curl. And it is the most cringy scene. It's like, I mean, it's not as cringy as Sub Rosa.
Well, very little is.
Yes, that's very true, and that's even been said by members of the TNG cast. So,
but it's nice to have something that'll be at least wholesome enough for kids. I mean, again, animation frees up a lot of, you know, effects problems. You can animate whatever, and you can make your characters look like whatever you want them to look like. Yeah. You know, and mind you, I've said this about Lower Decks, but Lower Decks, of course, is intended for adults. And like you said, they did the Naked Now, it last week?
Yes,
which
they
was,
did.
So
and I did appropriately pop, you know, all of you Comic Geek Speak listeners when I saw for the first time executive producers Shauna and Julie Benson. That made me super, super happy. And you guys, I mean, if you're listening to this, job well done. I'm sold. I really want to see where this series is going. This was an hour-long premiere, right? This episode, because it certainly felt that.
I don't know if I would say an hour long, but it's probably the length of 2 episodes, so it was probably 45 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I think we saw part 1 of 2 of the pilot.
Yeah, or if we didn't, then it's a full pilot with a good cliffhanger, let's put it that way, because we definitely get the introduction of all the characters that we're going to be meeting full hand, and then the premise of the show is set up, and then from there, let's move forward. Plus, we got to see an awesome panel afterwards with, you know, Kate Mulgrew and actually a meeting of two captains, for that matter, with the moderator,
Dawn Lewis.
Dawn Lewis is on board. I love that her promo shot when they have the slide that tells you who's going to be on the panel, and the promo shot of her, she's got like this long hair, probably extension, but she had like her real hair on the stage, and she was doing this whole like the call and response. When I say Star Trek, you say
Prodigy.
Yeah.
And for those of you unaware, yes, Dawn Lewis is the voice of the captain on Lower Decks currently.
Captain Freeman.
Yes, Captain Freeman. You are correct. Yeah. But yeah.
Her first name? What's her first name, Captain Freeman?
Sorry. Is it Helen?
I think it might be, actually. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Carol. It's Carol.
Oh, yes.
No,
you're
you
right.
know why
yes.
I always remember it is because of the episode with Riker, and he's like, Carol!
Yeah.
You were like my chadich. It was like the dumbest thing.
Plus, I love that her husband is Phil Lamar. Because
reuniting Futurama voices.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I overall, though, I'd say, to bring it back around the New York Comic Con itself, yes, it was smaller. Yes, the exhibitor list was a bit on the weaker side compared to previous years, if you want to put it that way. But there were still tons to see, tons to do, and honestly, even once we walked through the exhibitor hall, there were still plenty of exhibitors I wanted to go to and experience.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm one of the people that likes to go to the, I guess you want to call it the book row, which is an old New York thing.
Yeah.
But they have all of the publishers here because they're all based in Manhattan. They were not here this year.
Yeah.
None of them were here this year. I mean, there were some comic publishers, usually the smaller ones, like you've pointed out. The Marvel and DC aren't really here.
Right.
And I think, did Image have a booth? Or
Image didn't. Aftershock was the biggest publisher here.
Yeah, but the same goes with the publisher, like the mainstream non-comics publishers were not here. And it's a little disappointing because one of the things I like at New York Comic Con is I can usually buy books before they're actually on shelves.
Sure, yeah. And that really wasn't the case here.
Yeah, I ended up buying 2 mugs and a flannel hoodie that they charged me tax on. So now if there are any New York Comic Con staffers listening to this, for the love of God, I want my $4 back.
She's going to be writing an email, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be wordy.
I'm going to Karen. It's a verb now.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, still tons to see on the floor, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was at previous cons, I like to walk up and down the floor. I feel like I'm doing like a whole tour of the thing, up and down each aisle. Yeah. And I feel like I've done that, and I had a really good sense of, I'm really seeing everything this has to offer. I may not buy everything, but if I wanted to buy a thing, I know where it is.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a variety. Like, I don't remember, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember tea vendors here.
I was just going to say that. There were officially 3 separate tea vendors on the floor, because Kung Fu Tea was set up giving free samples. There was D&T, an amazingly named booth. And then there was the other one where Chris, you got your mugs from. That was, remember the name of that one?
Tea and Absinthe.
Thank you. That's it.
There's always been like novelty food vendors here. I think these guys. I would punch you if you were not holding this mic. There's always been novelty food vendors. Think these guys might be new. I mean, D&T I may have seen before. I'm a little fuzzy on that. I am trying to buy less tea because I have a lot of tea.
Fair.
But it's like, I mean, that's just it, is like people pulling out at least open the doors for other people who wouldn't normally exhibit. But no, I would not say food is a new thing. Though a fudge booth, that was a little weird.
Yeah, it was, but at least they were like superhero-themed fudge.
Yeah, but that's a stretch. It's like you take existing flavors and you just go, okay, well, this one we colored green anyway, so now it's the Incredible Hulk, and you stick your little toothpick sign in it.
Batman fudge had banana.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that existed before banana, because banana does not equate to Batman for me. I mean, honestly, the creme brulee should have been like the Batman. Bruce is a creme brulee man. I can feel it in my guts.
It tasted very wealthy. It tasted wealthy and secretive.
Come on, you missed the right way to put it. It tasted rich.
It tasted very rich and secretive.
Yes, rich and secretive, exactly. Claire, would you like to get on mic for a moment? Because I'd love to ask you a question or two. We just had another friend of ours join us here. I mean, walking around in costume this year, dressed as the one and only Alligator Loki. I mean, what was it like for you as a cosplayer this year at the newly returned Comic-Con?
It was very exciting. This is, for me, the first time I've ever been right in sync with the zeitgeist. So I've never been so popular.
I assume you were getting stopped every, 3 seconds.
Yes, that was a new experience for me. But yeah, it was exciting, especially because there's also room now with the limited capacity. You can actually see the costumes around you and appreciate them more than you could before.
For that matter, I don't feel like one time I actually was running into anybody that was being stopped to take pictures. Usually when you're walking the aisles, there's always one person that stops mid-aisle, and then you have to do the whole walk-around thing, and I literally don't think that happened once to me the entire time.
That's true. Yeah, people were stopped for pictures, but there was still plenty of room for traffic around them. It was so peaceful.
Did you manage to do any panels or anything, or were you just walking around?
Meetups, spaziering around, as one does.
Nice. Very, very cool, very cool. And for that matter, how does it compare to previous years for you? I mean, obviously, things were different, but, notwithstanding the fact that you're, the popular cosplay of the day, how did it compare in the end?
Yeah, I've only been here, 2019, and it was pretty overwhelming then, as an introvert, probably, which most of us here actually are. I think this was just about perfect. If we could keep the same cap on capacity and attendance, we might have to pay more, but it made for a much more peaceful, less harried, less jumbled elbows kind of experience.
Much more room to breathe.
Yes.
Yep. All right, excellent. Well, final thoughts here before we wrap up. Anything that we didn't mention, anything you want to mention, Kris?
Not in particular. My general thoughts is this has been a good show. I think they've handled the safety issues well. I do feel like the staff has loosened up on their enforcement of rules, not necessarily the mask rules, but things like we were in Artist Alley at closing time. Usually they throw us out on the dot, and they did not do that this year. I also saw, David was with me, the two vendors that were blocking the aisle, and normally somebody would have told them to move already. It's just, I don't know if it's just COVID times where it's rules don't matter.
Everything's made up and the rules don't matter.
Yeah, I think one thing that's going to tell the tale of whether or not they do it like this again, and I'd be curious to hear people's reactions, since so much, I guess, the panels on the metaverse, they're streaming and a lot more is accessible now, is that going to make people feel okay, if the people who either couldn't make it or couldn't make it because of COVID or just I only wanted to see panel X, Y, and Z, if they watched it on the website, do they feel oh, okay, I got what I wanted. Sure. I didn't need to schlep all the way down to the Javits. I got what I wanted, and if that works out for everybody, then we can continue to have a con like this instead of let's all be in a train car full of people.
Yeah, no, and that's a very good point. And I know some people that chose not to come this year for that very reason because they were still able to at least experience at least a little bit online. So that's the way that goes.
I think it would be lovely if they could continue at this rate, but I don't see any way that they will keep the lowered attendance rate just financially. I think this is probably a limited, rare COVID silver lining.
Right. Well, the one thing we can look forward to is the fact that there's all that over there. There's 5 floors of extension, and we only used floors 4 and 5 this year. There's an entire other hall that's accessible to New York Comic Con if and when they need it. And I think that may prove to be a way for it to still feel like this, because if there's enough stuff happening in the other hall, there's enough people spread out, and then you're not bumping into everybody every damn time. So something to consider.
That's true. I think still, though, there'll be kind of flocking around main areas. People will still cluster in some areas.
Yeah.
But
whether we like it or not, that's life. So unfortunately the case. All right, guys. Well, for that matter, thank you so much for at least coming on mic for a little bit here as we wrap things up. Kris, remind folks where they can find you.
At Kris Naudus on Twitter, also at Lampbane, which is where I shitpost all the time, and at Lampbane pretty much everywhere else. I do still write for Engadget and Yahoo, and I will be doing a reaction post for Star Trek Prodigy as well as the cast announcements, probably tomorrow or Tuesday. I can't be Gizmodo. I actually have to be edited.
Yes, that is very true. David, any socials you want to pimp?
I don't really do that, but I'll tell you what, I'll plug my sister. My sister's a comedian, Jackie Gold. She's out in California, Los Angeles. Jackie Gold, comedian.
Jackie Gold, comedian. Claire?
Yeah, I don't have a SoundCloud or anything, but at Clairemation, CLAIREMATION, on all the social platforms.
Yep. And you do have some Star Wars fanfic on there as well.
Fan art.
Fan art.
Complete difference.
Yes, you're right. One is art and one is writing. You're absolutely right. Fan art.
Totally different tenor, yes.
100% the case. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this entire New York Comic Con episode of Comic Geek Speak, and I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed it. Reminder that we thank you so much for everybody who's donated to the show over at patreon.com/comicgeekspeak. Email address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com, facebook.com/comicgeekspeak for the main Facebook and the Comic Geek Speak supergroup as well. We're over at YouTube at youtube.com/comicgeekspeak. Find us on Twitter at comicgeekspeak as well. And for all of you out there, we are, as always, uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time. It does smell like pee. Why does it smell like pee?
I don't know. We're not near the bathroom.